One, there are weapons that can reach across interstellar distances.
Okay.
We have things called relativistic kill missiles, which are particularly scary. It's basically any chunk of mass hurtled up near the speed of light, and there's basically nothing you can do to defend against that because by the time you realize it's been fired, it's too late. Hello and welcome to Entropy Rising, where we talk about science and futurism. I'm your host, Jacob, and of course I'm joined with my wonderful co-host, Lucas. Lucas, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing well. I see you're back from the sunny skies of Mexico, right?
Yep, it was great. Mexico and the Virgin Islands.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
We can talk more about your trip in the after episode discussion.
That sounds good.
So this week we are diving into the topic of galactic empires. It's the idea of, can you actually have a cohesive empire that spans the galaxy? And if so, how would you go about maintaining that? What would be the benefits of having it, or maybe some of the drawbacks?
Yeah, and of course the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about that is the Galactic Empire, right, from Star Wars. And they managed that rather poorly, I would say.
Do they?
Well, you know, with an authoritarian fist and...
Yeah, I guess. I know that there were like a couple thousand years before that, they had the Republic, and, you know, it was a cohesive government, I think, for the most part. I know you're more versed on Star Wars lore than I am, but I think the issue with that type of galactic empire, and it's the same issue that with like Star Trek or, you know, like the Foundation series, that Galactic Empire, is they all rely on having faster than light travel. And I know we've done an episode on faster than light travel, and we talked about how you could have a galactic government with that case as long as the FTL was cheap enough and fast enough. But since we're really going to be talking about realistic galactic empire, so we're going to make the assumption of no FTL for this episode.
Now, you see, that makes a big difference, right? Because when you have no FTL, now we're talking about logistics issues and just problems of, you know, why would everybody want to even be in a galactic empire?
Yeah, exactly. Because the issue you really run into is just the amount of space and time between two different nodes. I mean, even our nearest solar system is 4 light years away. So if you can't go faster than light, that's 4 years to get a message, 8 years to get a message and a reply. And, you know, who knows how long it actually takes to get a ship there. That's going to depend on your technology. If you are able to travel at near the speed of light, then that's a 4-year one-way journey. But realistically, traveling near the speed of light is quite challenging, quite hard. So you could potentially, even for our nearest neighbors, see that trip be 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. That's just going to depend on the technology you have available. And that's our nearest star.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about trying to span an entire galaxy, what is the width of the Milky Way?
Oh my God!
Like 360,000 light years or
off
something?
the top of my head, I want to say it's 150,000.
150,000 light years. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So it's first, of course, we're talking about like the hows of being able to get out there. Like, how are we going to send messages? How are we going to connect everything? And then, you know, it's like, why? Even like, why do we want to go out so far and cover so much area? What do they have out there that we can't get here?
Yeah. I think let's first talk about the issues, because there are a lot and there are many. One of the issues I just mentioned before was, of course, the time it takes, the communication delay. You know, if you want to send a message to your nearest planet, let's say you have an empire that's 100 light years across. You're talking about potentially a 200-year communication delay between when you send a message and you get a response. That means you're always going to be working on outdated information. If they have an issue and they send you a message for an issue and then you send your response, that's a 200-year delay. By the time they get their response, their issue is ancient history to them. Yeah,
it's like you're sending a message to a problem that is not relevant, and they're sending a response like, who is this?
Yeah, exactly. So there's no way you can have any type of governance over that type of delay. It's not feasible without faster than light communication, which again, we work off the premise is not going to happen. So realistically, having any type of localized, centralized government is just out of the question. You cannot have Earth overseeing all of these colonies with that type of delay.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense to me. Like, why would you even try to communicate with something that far away? Like you said, everything will be outdated. And the people that are over there probably will have long forgotten why they sent a message and who's sending one back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be interesting if they keep a log of like what was asked and when they're expecting the response. I feel like you would have to.
I mean, yeah, but even then, like, if we're talking 200 years, that is just a waste of paper or whatever they're using. Like, Earth said, "Hey," we said, "What's up?" They said, "We're all dying." They said, "That sucks."
Hopefully more pertinent messages than hey. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I do think you would have communication. I just don't think it would be call and response communication. I think you would maybe send out just like a constant stream of information. Perhaps Earth would send out a constant stream of information just to keep up with what's going on, not expecting a direct response to anything, but morally just to share culture and to share contact.
Now, that actually holds a lot more merit in my mind, because that way at least they're keeping up with where they came from as far as what is happening there. And a lot of people, I mean, even though it might be hundreds of years ago, they might still care about what's going on with Earth.
Especially to keep up with their home planet. But in addition to sending, just interesting information, entertainment and stuff like that, they could also be scientific information, new inventions, new technologies. And while sure, it might be 100 years out of date by the time it reaches your farthest colony, there's a good chance that Earth is going to be the center of new discovery and new invention for a long time.
Yeah, just because it has all that infrastructure set up for it, and it will have if we're reaching these new heights of expanding to the farthest reaches of our galaxy to begin with.
Absolutely. And the people, too. I mean, you might set up a new colony out and away, and you might even have a research-focused colony, but Earth is always going to have more people. It takes a really long time to grow your population like that. So, you're talking about a solar system that could have hundreds of billions of people. And so even if your colony is trying to be research focused, they just have more raw manpower. Yeah. For every researcher you have specializing on a topic, Earth could have 1 million.
That is true.
So just in terms of sheer discovery rate, it's very likely that Earth is going to be predominant for a long time. And that could exert some influence to help keep a little bit more of a cohesive society.
Yeah. I mean, the society could be built not off of power and not off of money, but off of technology, like a technocracy structure. So it's not really even a government anymore. It's just everybody looks to Earth for what to do next.
Not even so much what to do next, but if you're imagining, this colonization happening outside of Earth and all of these colonies being settled as that sphere of influence grows, as that colonization front progresses, Earth could potentially send new technological achievements out to colonies who stay in line, who don't pose a threat. Because that would be a concern. We have talked about the dark force theory, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have issues with that. They say, well, there's no guarantee there are aliens out there. But the minute you start actually building new colonies, you're guaranteeing there's new civilizations out at other stars who could potentially one day pose a threat to you. So maybe Earth does have some motive to keep people in line and to reward people who are staying on trend with what, humanity on Earth wants.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. Like, of course, if you have this technology that can then be used against you, you want some kind of power over it.
Exactly. So I'm imagining maybe a situation where Earth favorably sends technology and keeps newer colonies updated who are, have the same type of government and the same type of policies that Earth has to ensure they have the latest and greatest technology. And perhaps if your colony does not toe the Earth line, if you try to go in a different direction, Earth says, okay, well, we're not going to send you any technological updates, and all of your neighbors are going to get more technology than you, so you won't keep up in the arms race, so to speak. So everyone else has the new weapon, but you don't. And maybe that's one way Earth could potentially try to, I don't know if keep a cohesive society is the right word for it, but at least exert control even over these vast distances.
Yeah, like it's like you just said, like it's not like power really, or like a government, but it is like, hey, if you don't do what we say, there's something that we can do to hurt you.
Yeah, or the bare minimum, give all of your potentially enemies an unfair advantage.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't make a threat much worse than that. It's almost like you're building a lifeline to all of these other planets, and if for some reason they all have hostilities against each other, which I'm sure that they will. If they follow human nature, people get angry.
Maybe.
They want other planets. But, they could evolve, or we could be more sophisticated by then.
True. It's just, I guess the issue is the way that I'm picturing these quote unquote empires actually working, they're not going to have a lot of interaction with each other. So let's just quickly run over some things. For one, you're not going to have trade between neighboring solar systems in a realistic situation. There's just no way to export resources to another solar system in a way that is efficient. It's always going to be cheaper to just get raw resources from your own solar system. And there's not really any exotic material out in space that's worth shipping across interstellar distances. I know Avatar and all these movies always have some sort of unobtainium or some rare resource, right? But I mean, realistically, that doesn't make sense. What element would really be out there that we can't get from our own solar system?
Yeah, it would be very unlikely. I mean, there might be one undiscovered element, but then if we take it out of wherever it is, chances are it would
that's
disintegrate.
That's like strange matter, like a neutron matter, a neutron star. Sure, we can't really make that on Earth, but you also can't take it off the star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
unless there's just some like antimatter factory out there that, maybe that could be something worth it, because then that also gives you the energy to transport it. But as far as we know, nothing like that exists.
Or maybe it's like more of a service. Like they turn the neutron star into a neutronium gigaforge, and they're like, okay, you can bring us a moon and we will turn it into half its weight in iron in 7 days.
It only takes 350,000 years to get there. No. So in a realistic situation, you're not going to have any trade between these colonies. Maybe if you have faster than light travel, that's really cheap. And, we did an episode on faster than light travel. But like I said, a realistic situation, trade between these solar systems makes no sense. There's not really any economic incentive, and there's almost nothing you can ship across interstellar distances that's going to be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Unless for some random reason you were trying to build a megastructure. Like if Earth is trying to build some like gargantuan megastructure, like an actual, like, not even Dyson swarm, because it's still cheaper just to do star lifting and get the material from that. But if you are trying to build something so big, you need more than a solar system's worth of resources. Maybe, but even then, I think that's pretty improbable.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's like, what is the benefit of spending all the energy to harvest?
Yeah,
of a distant star system,
and ship that material back,
and ship it all back. Like you probably, use as much energy as that would generate.
Oh, by probably significantly more.
Yeah, like it's just crazy. Crazy to think of.
And just trying to imagine shipping any like meaningful amount of material just doesn't make sense. It's always going to be cheaper to get it locally. So what I really imagine when I'm talking about interstellar empires is obviously colonizing new solar systems, but really they're going to be set up as their own independent agencies. And I think the best we could probably do is have some sort of interstellar highway made of stellar pushing lasers that are designed to push ships that are powered by solar cells between stars. And then, you might be able to get up to 20, 30% the speed of light and exchange people, essentially. Materials, I don't really see it. I mean, maybe from Earth for some closer solar systems where the travel times are less than 50 years. If you ever get that, then there might be some really advanced technology that's worth sharing. But I just feel like even going further than that, it's faster to do the R&D on your own end and start making the technology yourself if it takes 200 years to get it from Earth, right?
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, it's just you can make your own factories and do your own R&D before you get even your first shipment.
Yeah, I mean, it really just does not make any sense to try and ship anything, information or objects.
Well, information makes sense because that travels at the speed of light and it doesn't really cost anything other than the relatively cheap amount of energy to create the beacon or to create the signal, which if you're harvesting a star's worth of energy is minuscule.
Oh yeah, that is true. I mean, information, of course, is important, but it's just like culture. It's just like you have 200 years before that reaches the initial planet, right? Like, let's say, it's the furthest out. You have 200 years or 150 years. How much has the culture changed already? Like, they would be readopting a brand new culture. Now, technology better, right?
So I think it's worth pointing out that if you have, let's say, a planet that's 200 years, I think you're imagining a situation where Earth sends the information and it reaches this new planet, and this new planet's like, this is 200 years old, we don't care. But in my mind, what you actually have is you have a planet that's receiving a constant stream of cultural information from Earth that, yes, is 200 years old from the perspective of Earth, but to them is the newest information they have. So it's not, they're constantly getting the stream of information and they're probably going to follow along because why not? It's, now that's becoming part of their culture, this information stream from Earth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that it's, like a bad idea. I'm just saying why a culture that has already developed a culture over the last 150 years would just then take influence from an entirely different culture without problem.
Because I think the issue is it's still going to, from their perspective, be their culture. I mean, if you imagine, right? You get on a ship to leave Earth to go to a new star. You're taking some culture with you on the ship. But in addition, unless you're frozen, you're probably getting a constant stream of information from Earth, whether that's entertainment or news from home or whatever, that's following your ship out as you travel to the star.
Okay.
And then once you get there, you're still receiving this information. You're still following along. Whatever TV shows are being made, so to speak, or entertainment feeds being made, you're probably still watching them. Yes, it's out of date from Earth's perspective, but it's the newest information you have. And so I imagine that's going to have an influence. And Earth is going to be, I think, the cultural center of humanity, as well as the technology center of humanity for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Now, you brought up the fact that they would be receiving it on the ship while they flew over to the new planet. That makes a lot more sense because then they're being like fed it constantly as they're going as well.
I feel like, and I don't know why, I think this is because I read a lot of like 50s and 60s science fiction. And I think that people have the same mindset. When you think of culture, people tend to think of like TV shows, right?
I mean, yeah, TV shows technically are culture.
Of course they are, but I feel like people just think of like, why would I want to watch TV that's 200 years out of date? But of course, realistically, all this cultural, quote unquote, cultural information could be new programs. It could be new video games, new virtual reality environments.
Yeah. New ways to dress, new ways to talk, new things to try to eat. Like cultures, I mean, it's everything that you do that you're comfortable with.
So you might, that would be another thing to stay up and date with, is because, if you have the option to get new entertainment feeds from Earth, new video games, new entertainments, I think you would probably want it. It would be interesting, though, because if you were to be able to pluck someone from this far flung off colony and instantly teleport them back to Earth, all their cultural information would be 200 years out of date. But they'll never know that because, again, to them, it's that communication delay. That's as up to date as they can be. And you'll never instantly be able to teleport them back, so they'll never realize.
Now that we've talked about it, it kind of seems incredibly vital to have culture beamed over to them, because the thing about their life without it, they would arrive on this planet and just start a life from not like their life would just be so aimless. I feel like things would be difficult, and in building and creating a new life and a new place on this world, it sort of gives guidance.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it would be there. It's relatively cheap to send, and I think it's vital, like you said, to have some sort of entertainment. And of course, I mean, realistically, if you're colonizing new stars, you're probably not doing it with a handful of people. These ships might carry millions of people, tens of millions of people, more than enough people to have your own culture, your own entertainment. But if you've got that feed available, I think people would tap into Earth as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, a bit of a side tangent. But yeah, I think the culture would travel with people and the colonies would do it. I think that's really the only currency that could actually exist on any type of empire like this.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. But when I'm thinking about, like the currencies that can be exchanged and things like that within an empire, I also want to think about like, how do we keep control over an empire, right? Most people's first thought is a military, right? Like in Star Wars, they have stormtroopers across the entire galaxy and enforcing the law that they have, but that wouldn't work in real life.
Absolutely not. Yeah, because you can't send a military response if it's 50 years, 100 years, 200 years to get there.
Yeah. So then if you're not using military, and I mean, you brought up the point earlier where Earth could just be like, well, you don't get information anymore. You're in timeout.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, would that be enough to hold all the control together enough to actually call it an empire?
I guess it depends on your definition of empire. I don't think you're ever going to have a centralized control empire no matter what. I think the best you're going to have is a loose conglomeration of human civilizations that have a cultural and informational share. But to answer your point, how could you try to exert some control over that? There's a few ways. One, there are weapons that can reach across interstellar distances.
Okay.
We have things called relativistic kill missiles, which are particularly scary. It's basically any chunk of mass hurtled up near the speed of light, and there's basically nothing you can do to defend against that, because by the time you realize it's been fired, it's too late.
Yes, I do believe we talked about that once, and how it's about the size of a bus and will implode.
Yeah, if they travel near
the side of a planet.
So there is a physical influence you could potentially have even at these distances. I don't know why you would do that. Really the only reason I could ever see you building a weapon like this is to try to have shotgun diplomacy, like, hey, we've got the biggest gun, but once you do that, then everyone else is going to want to do it. I feel like you're just opening Pandora's box, but I could potentially see a dystopian future where all these solar systems build out all of these RKMs, and you have a culture of or an empire held together by mutually assured destruction of if you target me or do something to me, then I'll do something back to you, or even mutual defense pacts where once you're shown to be hostile, everyone else is going to target you. Kind of like a dark force theory. But I struggle to think of why you would end up in that situation in the first place. What do you have to gain by targeting and destroying another human colony? Unless they've, for whatever reason, proven to be a threat. Maybe if you have evidence that this colony has been taken over by some horrible dictatorial government and might pose a threat to you, but it's just, again, you're so far away, you've just got no skin in the game. You gain nothing by destroying another colony.
Yeah, and why? And it just stands to reason, like, why would another colony even become hostile to be? Like, what do they want?
What do they gain? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like you share borders. I mean, and there's
Nobody
nothing,
gains anything.
and even if you could go and take what they have, you can never reasonably get it back to your own solar system. So, while yes, you could theoretically have this, I just don't ever see it really happening.
Okay.
Now, another one you could potentially explore is you mentioned sending militaries over, depending on your technology. If you can absolutely brainwash somebody, then maybe you could have some sort of super loyal military group in the neighboring solar system to exert control over it, to respond to issues real time that will stay and do what the original sender of that colony wanted. And maybe that's something you could do because you want to make sure they never become hostile. That's, I think, a little bit more in the realm of possibility. I mentioned brainwashing, but it could also potentially be like a sentient AI that you know and trust will always follow your demands or your wants. That one I think is more in the realm of feasible, just to ensure they never become a threat.
Right.
I say more in the realm. I don't really know how realistic it is, because how can you guarantee that's never going to drift with time?
I mean, you can, unless you made the colonies entirely out of, no, because even then,
Yeah,
could
there's
still
always the
drift.
risk of like drift over time.
So,
I do
yeah, you
imagine like
can't.
if you have an AI ruler over your new colony, perhaps it can still stay in contact with Earth. Yes, that contact will be out of date by however many light years away it is, but if it has the agency to make its own decisions and act, and then is in delayed communication with Earth to retroactively see if those decisions it made in the past align with what Earth wants. That could be kind of a way to exert control and government over a long period of time. And essentially, if the AI does something that Earth disagrees with, it'll alter its model and try to stay aligned as best it can with its home system. And maybe that's something you would want, again, just to ensure that the new colony doesn't become a threat to you or decide, screw it, we're going to send RKMs out because why not? But that's about it. That's really the only reasonable way I could see you having any type of control over these colonies.
Okay. No, that makes sense, and it kind of brings me into the next point that I wanted to make, was talking about like when we start expanding out into these colonies. Like let's say we go to our next closest star system,
Okay.
and we're ready to start a colony there. Do you think that we try to keep control of that one? Because I feel like we would have to make the decision when we start doing those colonies is, are we going to try to hold on to power and make this something beneficial to us? Or are we just doing this for the moving forward of mankind, for the advancement of mankind and its expansion across the galaxy? And we just let them continue off as a sovereign nation, essentially, or a sovereign planet. Now, obviously, people that are much smarter than myself will have thought of these things and sent them out, but it's like we've been talking about already. Like there really seems like no point. So I feel like, how are we going to get the resources together? Like, who's going to pour all those resources in to get that first colony ship out there?
I think it would, by definition, need to be self-sustaining. So I don't really think we would send any of these colonies out with the expectation that we're going to control them. I don't foresee that happening. To answer your second question, and I've said this before when we talked about interstellar colonization, they have to be self-funded. I think the people who want to go there are the ones that are going to help start getting these resources together, with the goal being to get there. And you could potentially, of course, have agencies that help fund this because they want to advance humans into space. There are agencies that will do that. And I know I've mentioned this before in The Expanse, the Mormons building the Nauvoo.
Yes.
Definitely, I could see if you have like 1 million people who want to go and settle a new star, which when you're talking about, if we have expanded into our broader solar system, you're talking about populations that can be into hundreds of billions. So getting together 100 million people or a million people and pooling their resources to build an interstellar ship starts to seem more reasonable, especially if you have automated manufacturing. But I don't think like Earth is going to fund this because they're good people. I think the people who want to go would probably have to be the funding source.
No, that I mean that absolutely makes sense. But then at that point, it's like when you were thinking of realistic solar and galactic empires, but when you start thinking about them on a galactic scale, it just doesn't really seem like an empire to me at all anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. Like I said, best case scenario, a loose conglomeration of human settlements that talk to their neighbors. I think that's the best you're going to get without some type of faster than light travel.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the ability to exchange goods, then how is it going to be an empire, really?
Yeah, and it's just what's the point of it being one to start with?
So what do you get out of it? Even if you could exert absolute control over all of these colonies, what do you actually gain from that?
Nothing really. You gain stress and angry people.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't think you're going to have any. I hate to break the hearts of people who want a space human empire, but I just don't foresee that happening. Again, unless you get something like fast and light travel.
So start thinking about how we're going to get that, guys, or else we can't have a galactic empire.
Absolutely.
But solar empires, on the other hand.
No, that's more doable on a smaller scale. I definitely think you could have a cohesive solar empire.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like taking our solar system, for example, well, we have Earth and Mars and, 2 other rocky planets that we could settle.
Yeah, have floating colonies on Venus. We need to talk about those at some point.
Yeah. And then, like we've talked about before, why even settle planets when you could float around in space?
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you have the technology to go interstellar distances, then you probably have the technology to travel around the solar system relatively fastly. If you can maintain a constant 1G acceleration, then trips around our solar system only take a couple of months, even going out to the farther planets from Earth. It's only, a couple of months, I think, at 1G, like between 2 and 4 months.
Yeah, see, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You can harvest resources from, our asteroid belts and send them back home.
And you've also got more skin in the game. You want to exert control over this because these people can directly affect you.
Yes, they are, as we've seen also in like The Expanse. We do not want Mars being its own place that can shoot missiles at South America. We do not want that.
That wasn't Mars. It was the OPA.
I'm
misremembering
The Expanse. I thought that it was Mars retaliating.
No. It was actually a rebel group, but that's we're not going to dive into the Expanse. I don't want to spoil it. Read the books, watch the TV show. But yeah, no, you could absolutely have, I think, a more cohesive empire inside of our solar system. I do think that's reasonable. I think the needs are there. And I think it also makes more sense. You could have colonies in the outer solar system or on Mars that are reliant on Earth. Earth has to send them food or send them materials for them to exist. So that is a form of control that Earth will have over these, and it's a mutual exchange they need. Perhaps they send back raw resources, raw metals, and Earth sends them what they need to, exist.
Yeah. And obviously this is on an entirely lower level than galactic expansion. Us just expanding out into the solar system would be the first step in that whole thing, but it's in like an entirely different ball field. But it would definitely make sense to keep control over your own solar system, collect those resources, grow more powerful. But then, that's pretty much the end goal as far as a galactic or a solar empire can go. Yeah.
And, you might send out colonies to new stars, but other than staying in touch with them, I don't think you would do much. Occasionally, you might send out new ships there. If a group of people want to go, especially if you can build these stellar pushing lasers, which will significantly reduce the cost. But it's hard to imagine people wanting to leave their own solar system unless they just had that adventurous spirit.
Yeah, but I mean, if we don't have faster than light travel, it's like, I want to go and spend 60 years on a ship.
Yeah. What is interesting, if you ever read Revelation Space, I love that series. I know I've mentioned it in the past a lot because they do have, not an empire, but they do have interstellar travel without faster than light. Granted, they have ships that can go very close to the speed of light, which makes it a lot easier. But I think that is probably one of the more realistic depictions of an interstellar empire that I've read in fiction.
Okay.
Because you have long travel times. It's a one-way trip. You don't really see people moving between solar systems unless they just really want to, or they're really wealthy, or, they want to go found their own colony because they want to be in charge of their own government, which is actually a good reason to go out and try to colonize new stars. Maybe you have a group of people who say, I want to be in charge of a whole planet. And so they put the funds together, they put the materials together. And that's kind of what we see in Revelation space. But once that colony is there, there's not huge reason to move people between stars. It's very expensive.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. I mean, but that would be a pretty nice situation. Like imagine, half of the planet doesn't like the way that the planet's being run. And they're like, all right, guys,
And that's kind of
let's go run it the way that we want to.
And that's essentially basically what kickstarted in Revelation space. They had a colonized solar system. There was a group of people who did not want to be in that solar system anymore. So they developed some ships that could go near the speed of light and jet it off. And I don't want to go into too many details to spoil it, but that's the lore behind it. It's not any specific story. Now, I will say in Revelation space, they did have interstellar trade between different planets, between different solar systems. But the reason for that was their ships basically required no fuel. So there was no cost associated with moving between the star. And that was it's science fiction at the end of the day. So
Right.
that was the bit of science fiction.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, that does make a very big difference. So yeah, if you have giant ships that are several miles large that require no fuel to get near the speed of light, then perhaps it is worth it to move resources between solar systems.
Yeah, but the whole not having his fuel is like 90% of the weight.
Yeah,
So
that's being very generous.
it
It could be up to like 99.99% for ships like these.
So if we had no fuel, I mean that would be awesome. We could move whatever we wanted.
So I guess that would be one of the exceptions. If we can find a way to move across the stars without making 99.999% of our ship fuel, then maybe it starts to make sense to move exotic and rare goods.
Yeah. See, really, we just need one of those micro black holes, or
Yeah, Kugelblitz.
a Kugelblitz, or like dark matter or an antimatter.
And I
That'd be
think
good.
that would be good, yeah. And I think one of the things I really liked about Revelation space and the way they handled it was it was still very rare to move between solar systems for people.
Yeah. I mean, I love the reason why I fell in love with The Expanse was it was the first story-based portrayal of a realistic space situation.
It was the first,
but that I had encountered. I love Star Trek, Star Wars. Oh, so cool, shields and lasers. But in this, like I taking a look at something that has a realistic approach and adds that in, it brings me like glee, like I get giddy. I'm like, oh, that's so cool because it could be possible.
I could see this existing. I could see myself being in this environment. And I think that's why The Expanse captured the imagination of so many people.
Yeah.
Because the areas where it did bend the truth were really far out there, and I don't think most people noticed it or cared. Who cares that the ships aren't covered in giant radiators? It doesn't make it feel less realistic.
Yes, absolutely right. And we are not sponsored by The Expanse, just so you guys know. I know we talk about them a lot. Yeah, if you're listening.
Yeah, Amazon.
Well, if it's Amazon, I know they're listening. We bought these microphones on Amazon.
Well, thank you so much for listening to our episode on space empires. Next week, we're taking a bit more of a science fiction kick, and we're going to be talking about forge worlds and agri worlds and all these specialized worlds that if you did have an interstellar empire that you could easily move things around and you wanted to make specialized worlds for, we're going to talk about how those could possibly work and what they would actually look like and what it would be like to live on them. If you like Warhammer 40K, I think this will be a good episode for you. Thank you so much for joining. Take care.
Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.